Very good morning, Professor Praveen. So could you hear us?
Yes, I'm hearing you. Yeah.
Very good morning, sir. So nice to have you here with us. And I was just mentioning the participants, Professor Praveen uh, is not just a mentor to me, not just a guide to me, has always been a constant motivation for me. And due to push or support from these faculties, we are here in an IT system. Sir, we welcome you. A very, very warm welcome to you. Sir, not taking much of the time, I would request Anamika Yadav to please give a brief introduction about our esteemed speaker. Anamika, over to you.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Professor. My name is Anamika Yadav, research scholar at IIT Jammu. A very warm welcome to all the participants and speakers. First lecture in this program starts with Introduction to Pavement Materials by Professor Praveen Kumar, IIT Roorkee. Uh, Dr. Praveen Kumar is Professor of Civil Engineering at Indian Institute of Technology, Roorkee. He has been Director of National Institute of Technology, Delhi in 2018 to 2020. He worked as an Associate Dean Faculty Affairs of IIT Roorkee since January 2010 to December 2012. He was assigned the responsibility of Coordinator Transportation Engineering Group of Civil Engineering Department for the session 2010 to 2012 and again on December 2015 to July 2018. He obtained his PE degree from MR Engineering College, Jaipur, now NIT, ME, and PhD from the University of Roorkee, now IIT Roorkee. He has served the Central Road Research Institute, New Delhi, for 6 years as a scientist in soil stabilization and rural road division. He has wide experience of test track construction using waste materials in Andhra Pradesh, Bihar, Orissa, and Delhi. His areas of specialization are waste material utilization in low-cost roads, rural roads, network planning, pavement materials, pavement performance studies, and intelligent transport system. Dr. Praveen Kumar has published about 400 research papers in national and international journals and conferences. He has completed about 200 sponsored and consultancy projects. He has developed the rural road masters plan of various districts in Andhra Pradesh, Rajasthan, and Uttar Pradesh based on optimal rural road planning network planning. He has edited CRRI research journal Sadak Darpan for about 6 years. He has won CSIR National Prize for the year 1995-96. He was awarded the Best Research Paper Award, Bihar PWD Medal by Indian Road Congress for year 1999 to 2000. And again in 2016-17, All India Council for Technical Education has given him the prestigious Young Teachers Career Award for R&D work on low-cost roads. He is also he is also a recipient of the highest award of Road Congress, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru Centenary Award 2000. The Institution of Engineers has given him the Best Paper Award in 2002, 2009, and 2013. Indian Institute of Technology Roorkee has given him Outstanding Teacher Award for 2003, 7, and 11. Besides Best Paper Award of ISCMS 2002, he was adjudged as Star Performer for Overall Performance by IIT Roorkee in 2003, 4, 4, 5, and 5, 6. Air India has given him the Bolt Best Teacher Award in 2006 and again in 2007. Dr. Praveen Kumar was a part of six-member National Executive Committee of Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana, looking after the mega Yojana at national level for 2003 to 2018. He was coordinator of Principal Technical Agency and State Technical Agency for PMGSY till 2018. He has organized 14 training courses at IITR to train about 1,200 field engineers of UP, Uttarakhand, and other states PMGSY. He has delivered a number of lectures in various parts of the country for the benefit of engineers of Northeast, Gujarat, Maharashtra, MP, HP, Haryana, Jharkhand, J&K, etc. He has also contributed to the Manual of Rural Road developed by Rural Road Committee of IRC. Dr. Praveen Kumar has developed various softwares which are useful in the field of road and road transport. Dr. Praveen Kumar has guided 14 PhDs and 92 MTech theses in transportation engineering. 6 PhDs are in progress. He has organized several conferences as organizing secretary, has served the civil engineering department in various administrative capacities, including chairman, academic program committee. He has been the editor of IIT newsletter, Samvad, and IIT annual report for about 10 years. He has served as chairman of Library Advisory Committee of IIT Roorkee for 3 years. President of India has nominated him as visitors nominee for selection committee of Civil Engineering Department of IIT Delhi, IIT Madras, IIT Jodhpur, and Court of Banaras Hindu University. He is also council nominee in Board of Governors of IIT BHU. Thank you so much, sir, for coming here and delivering this lecture. Please welcome Dr. Praveen Kumar. Thank you, sir.
Over to you, sir.
Good morning, everybody. So I'm going to share it. Are you able to see?
Yes, sir. We can see the screen, sir.
Okay. So again, a very good morning to all of you, and I'm happy to give this lecture. As Ankit has invited me to start the course, and I give best wishes to all of you to the course to be very informative to all of you, and I am also thankful to your director for calling me. Now I am going to start with the introduction to pavement materials, and in the materials I will be covering those things which are not the normal things. Otherwise, you know, the bitumen is there, the aggregate is there, and you have to use. So since I believe that all of you are from the pavement side and you know what are the different materials. So here the introduction to pavement material doesn't mean that I am going to discuss each and everything of the aggregates and the bitumen, and it may require a lot of lectures for that. So that is not my motto. I will be discussing things which are not common, or you can say the materials which are not common in the use. So I will be discussing about that. There are different type of soils in India, like lateritic soil, muram or red soil. These are muram soils are basically weathered rocks. Then desert soils which are there in Rajasthan and some part of Gujarat. Alluvial soils are there which are coming along with the rivers and these are making the banks of the rivers, and at the later stage, when due to the meandering, river changes its path, then that banks become the main land of the area. Then clays, including BC soils, you know that in different parts of the country, clays are also there, and BC means black cotton soil. Black cotton soil is mainly in Bengal and some part of Andhra Pradesh, in some part of Maharashtra also. And there are some low-grade soft aggregates like gravels, morums, which are there at all places. Then you have the Kankar. Kankar is in mostly in Uttar Pradesh. Dhandla is in Rajasthan. Laterite is again the rock which is making the lateritic soil. Then you have the soft stone or the sandstone. These are basically the stones which have taken place due to the sand only. Then brick aggregates, bats, overburned bricks, these are there. These are the bricks which are made for the buildings, but they are not usable there. For example, bats are nothing but the broken bricks. So when the bricks have been broken, they cannot be used in the building construction, so we can put them in the road. Similarly, overburned bricks are the bricks which cannot be used in the building construction. They are rejected from there, so you can use in road construction. Then I have the list of some non-conventional waste materials which you can see, and these are in use now in our country also. Firstly, you have the blast furnace slag. These three, first 2 and 3, they are coming out from the steel industry waste. When you produce 1 ton of steel, at the same time 1 ton of waste material is also generated, and you have to find out the use of these materials so that these are not piling up in the nearby areas.
Sir, sorry to
Yes.
interrupt. Sir,
Yes.
sorry to interrupt. It is not full screen. It is. I mean, if you can make it full screen.
It is not full screen. Okay.
Yes,
From
sir.
my side, it is full screen, but I will see again. I will
Yes,
do it
sir.
again.
Yes. Sorry to disturb you in between, sir.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Is it full screen now?
Yes, sir. It is full screen now. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So in the case of blast furnace slag, granulated blast furnace slag, steel slag, I will be discussing in detail about these three. So and fly ash also I will discuss. Fly ash is the material which comes out when you produce the electricity by burning the coal. Then the ash which is coming out is the fly ash. Then you have the copper slag. It is the waste material when you are making the copper. Then inorganic municipal waste is the material which we get it from the the municipal waste treatment plants. In Delhi, you have Okhla treatment plant in the area of Mathura Road, and there we made one road known as the Gadi Dandala Road. This material is taken out from the municipal waste. It is separated from there, which is not biodegradable. Then you have the quarry waste. Quarry waste is the material which is when you blast any quarry, then the material settles in the nearby areas and that can be used in the road construction. Silica fume is the material which is coming out from the glass making industry, and these are basically the silicates. Then you have the colliery spoil. This is from the coal mines. Red mud. Red mud, anybody can guess from where red mud is coming? Anybody among the participants can guess from where red mud is coming? Nobody? Okay. So red mud is coming out from the aluminum industry. When you are making the aluminum, then the waste materials, which the bauxite ore is converted to aluminum, and there it comes out. Then bagasse is the waste material. Again, anybody can guess? I hope your mics are off, so that is why somebody is speaking, he is not able to answer. So if you want to answer, first unmute your mic and then answer. Anybody has answer to bagasse?
Waste material from sugarcane industry.
Yeah, it is from sugarcane industry, right answer. So what we do is, when we take out the juice extract from the sugarcane, I am talking about we are discussing about this bagasse. In case of bagasse, it is from the sugarcane industry. When we take out the juice from the sugarcane, the remaining part is burned as the burning material in the boilers. And after that, whatever it is coming, it is basically the ash, and which is having the property just like fly ash, so it can be used there. Then we have the construction debris. Construction debris is basically the material which is coming out from the construction industry, maybe building, maybe road. Whatever material is coming there as a waste can be used in the road construction in different layers. Then we have the scrap tires. Scrap tires are basically the worn out tires from the vehicles. These can be used in the modification of bitumen, known as the crumb rubber modified bitumen, CRMB. Then we have coir and jute. Coir is basically from the coastal region. We have the coir, and from there, this coir can be used in different forms. It may be white coir. I will be telling you about this also if the time permits. I don't know how much part of this presentation we will be covering by 11:30, but whatever is possible by that I will do. Then jute is again from the black cotton soil areas, like mainly from Bengal. You have the jute, and we are the number one exporters of coir and jute in the world because of this, and this material can be used in the road construction also. Then we have paper industry waste, especially in our nearby area of Roorkee. We have Saharanpur. The paper industry is there. They are making the paper, and in that the waste material which is coming out is known as the black liquid. That can also be used in the road construction. Then these rice husk ash and rice straw ash. When we convert the paddy into rice, the covering of the natural rice is removed, and the covering becomes a material for source for burning. And after burning, it also becomes like fly ash or like bagasse. Rice straw ash are also the material which are available in the fields, and these are also burned and converting into ash. Then wollastonite is a material available in Rajasthan. It is a stone, and it is having very low strength, but it is just like powder. It becomes powder when compressed, and that powder can be used in any type of construction, maybe rigid pavement, maybe flexible pavement. Then we have waste bag plastic. In this waste bag plastic, what you do, you again mix it with the bitumen and modify the bitumen, or sometimes it can be used as a reinforcement as the geotextile in the pavement also. Then asbestos is also a material which, when used, after use, it becomes useless, and then it can be mixed with the bitumen. Similarly, different type of plastic materials like Bisleri bottle or any waste plastic bottles can be used to modify the bitumen. Here you can see that this is not a hill or hillock. This is a dump of the waste material near Visakhapatnam steel plant, and this was creating a problem to the environment. So it was thought how to use this. Then again, it is a dump near Rourkela steel plant. Its height can be assessed from the figure. You see here, there is one buffalo is standing here, and by the height of buffalo, you can understand what is the height of this dump, how difficult it is to utilize this waste material. Now you can see that there are three waste materials which are coming in the picture. First is the blast furnace slag, air-cooled blast furnace slag. Second is the granulated air-cooled blast furnace slag, and third is the fly ash. So first I will tell you about the blast furnace slag. It depends upon what method you are using to cool the slag. Slag, when comes out from the steel plant, its temperature is more than 1000 degrees centigrade. So if you put it in the air, it takes the shape of the big rocks. And to cool them, there are different methods. To cool the rock, there are different methods. First is let it be in the air as such. So it will take the form of big rocks and boulders that can be crushed, and in that case it will be the blast furnace slag or air cooled blast furnace slag. If you put the jet of water over that to cool it, then it will take the structure of a small tiny particles like sand, and then it will work as the fine aggregate. If you put the jet of air over it, then what will happen? That it will take the form of expanded slag. Expanded slag is nothing but the aggregate which is having very light weight, and due to light weight, it can be used in the filling where the load requirement is not there. So mainly it is composed of calcium and magnesium silicates and aluminous silicates. So based on that, you have seen the pictures. This is blast furnace slag, and this is granulated blast furnace slag, GBFS. Now, after from there coming out the iron which comes out from blast furnace, it is further refined in steel making shop. There also the waste material comes out, and that is having more strong, and its waste material is having more steel. So this is very dense hard material having lower alumina and silica but high lime. These are the different results of the test which we conducted on these materials. This work was done in CRRI when I was scientist at CRRI long back, but still this work is useful because this work paved the way for the use of these materials in road construction. After that, it was really in use and people started using, and now this is not a waste material. So you see here, these are the requirements. Because if you want to use any material in road construction, what you have to do? If a new material comes to you and somebody says you want to use it, what you will do? You will put it on the anvil. You will put it for the test, which are the traditional test, and you will see that whether these values are coming within the limits or not. So you can see here, for example, impact value is 18 to 24, for SMS 8 to 11, and the value is the lower side, it is more useful. For example, for sub-base base course, maximum requirement is 40. This is of course changing now. These values are taken from that time when this project was done. Now these values have been further reduced. It is, I think, now 30. Similarly, crushing value, Los Angeles abrasion value, flakiness, elongation, water absorption, and bulk density. In everything, it is coming out to be fairly good, and that is why this was done. Then chemical composition of blast furnace slag, steel slag, and fly ash used. You can see here. Mainly, it is having silica, and after that, the strength comes from calcium oxide. calcium oxide is basically lime. So the strength is coming from this portion. But due to this lime, there is one problem also, that this steel making slag or SMS is having 1 to 2.5% free lime also. This free lime, when is used in the road construction, it reacts with the environmental in moisture, and because of that the swelling takes place, and due to swelling there are cracks, there is volume change. So it was thought what to do with this material, because after construction there were cracks initially. So we thought and we decided to weather it. After weathering for 1 year, the material was used in road construction, so that when it is being weathered, it is being put in the air freely, then it will react with the atmospheric moisture. And within a year, that free lime will become inert lime. And this will not create the problem for the road construction. This you can see that one road was made near Visakhapatnam, that is Anakapalli Pudimadaka road. And in that road, we used these 4 specifications. You can see here, it was basically 1.25 meter widening on both the sides, and then putting the new layer of bituminous construction on the top. And then after that, we were doing the evaluation of the pavement top surface. This you can see, at that time more equipment were not available for the pavement evaluation, so we used the dumpy level. This is a very old photograph. You may not recognize my photograph. In this work we use this dumpy level, and that dumpy level was the only source of equipments available with us. This is not the Anakapalli Pudimadaka road. Another road we made at that time, that was known as the Bhimunipatnam Narsipatnam road near Visakhapatnam. So this is the photograph of that road. Now it is the another photo. In this the road was constructed in the campus of Bokaro Steel Plant. So this road is being shown there. Third work was at the Raurkela, and the road was Bandamunda Jalaigala road. And in that we use 11 specifications, different specifications with steel making slag. And you will find that in some specification there is a full road with the waste material. This is known as grave taillier technique, which is a French technique. And in that we say that every layer is composing of the waste material. So that we were using. One specification number 6 is the conventional specification, so that we can compare this. Again, this road was also monitored for 3 years. In this photograph, you can see I am trying to find out the structural adequacy of the pavement by using the Benkelman beam. While in the second photograph, you will find that it is a dipstick, that is auto read road profiler. That equipment had come by that time when we started this third project, and instead of dumpy level, we use this material, this equipment. You can see here again, and in this equipment, you can see that a mini computer is fitted here. And at the road itself, you can find out the rut depth, you can find out the slope variance, etc. This photograph is telling you about the texture of the road. You can see it is a very rough texture, because in this the steel making slag is used in the top layer, which was not crushed even after application of the road roller, because it was having a good amount of iron with it. If you remember the table, SMS was having a good amount of, I go back. We'll see here that is Fe2O3, that is ferric oxide, is 15 to 30% in SMS. So this is the problem, or rather it's point also, that it is having 15 to 30% slag, and that is why this texture is very rough. The stones are protruding out, coming out, and that is why it was a very strong section. The next is the fly ash utilization in road embankments. At that time, the parallel bridge of Nizamuddin Bridge, that is the second bay, was being constructed on the Ganga River, Yamuna River, sorry. And at that time, it was known as Indo-Japan Friendship Bridge. And first time in the country, the embankment was constructed using the fly ash. 10,000 trucks of fly ash utilized in this construction. And as I said, that there are many problems with the fly ash. That is why research was going on for last 30 years in the country, but no road was being constructed using the fly ash. Why? And people used to say that if you put the pages of the research papers which were written on fly ash, if you put the pages one by one on the road, then that road length which comes out from the pages of the fly ash is not even more than the real road construction using fly ash, because in lab it was being done, but not in the field. Fly ash has its own problems, like it is always put in the moist condition, otherwise it flies. Its name is fly ash, so that is why it flies. If it is with more water, it flows like water. So it cannot be transported in air. It cannot be stored without water. And considering this problem, mixing of the fly ash is also difficult. And you know the OMC of fly ash is more than 25%, while the OMC of other soils is around 8 to 12%. So it requires more water, and when it is having the water, you cannot mix it. For mixing, you have to dry it. And if you dry it, it will fly. So considering this problem, nobody able to put his hand or leg in this controversy, and everybody was just writing the papers and nobody was making the roads. So at that time there was a pressure from Environment Ministry to utilize this materials, otherwise it was having a lot of environmental hazard. In Delhi also we have Indraprastha thermal plant in Delhi where we are making the electricity from coal. So that pressure was there to find out the ways, and the way was found. So if there is a requirement, there is always the invention. So it is said that need is the mother of invention. So since the need was there, so we invented a new simple method. Instead of mixing fly ash with anything, what we did, we made the layered approach. 1 meter fly ash, then 30 centimeter soil. 1 meter fly ash, then 30 centimeter soil. That way 9 meter embankment was constructed. And a pitching was done from the side. You can see here. This is soil. This is fly ash. And this is stone pitching. From the side. 1 meter soil cover was there, and after the 1 meter soil cover, stone pitching was made there. Now another thing you can see here, these are the plastic boards. This is the project which I did with BPCL, Bharat Petroleum Corporation Limited. This is the photograph from Bombay refinery of BPCL. They are their campus, and what they are doing, these are the plastic boards. Plastic boards of the waste plastic are like this. They compress the plastic and put them in the form of board. Then these boards are put there, and over that we provided the 50 centimeter of this bituminous concrete. And you can see here that the material was filled up in these boxes. The main purpose was to utilize the plastic. So you can see here that this is the road which was made using this material. And then we try to find out the structural adequacy by using the Benkelman beam. This is a modified form of Benkelman beam. Earlier we were using the open type of Benkelman beam. This is a simple but in-house type of Benkelman beam in which you can take the readings. And the road, this project was done around 3 years back. Before I went to NIT Delhi as director, I did this project, and still it is working. And recently, one road has been constructed in Noida using the same technique. And we are going to monitor that road periodically. And if it is successful, then we will be able to use this technique throughout the country. Now, mechanical stabilization is there. If you want to use any material, normally a single material will not provide you the same gradation or same requirement or the same property which are needed by the recommended gradation or recommended property. So what do? You mix um, 2 or more materials, and then from those materials what you do is you find out the combination of these materials, and then that combination is fulfilling the requirement of the recommended limits. The mixing may be done for 2 purposes, either due to grading or due to PI also. PI is the plasticity index, which is the difference of liquid limit and plastic limit. So for example, suppose you have a material having PA is equal to 2, PB is equal to say 14, and you require the P to be 6. You require the material of PI 6, but you have 2 materials with you. One is having PI 2, another is having PI 14. So you have to mix them in such a manner that PA minus PB, P minus PB, 6 minus 14 is to PA minus P, that is 2 minus 6. 8 is to 4, that is 2 is to 1. In this ratio, you have to mix the material. This was the CRRI method. And based on that, you can decide the mixing material. But if you are not interested in finding out through the formula, the lump sum requirements are also there, like clay soil needed for sand and soil gravels, sand needed for sandy soils, silty soil 15 to 30%, sand needed for clay and BC soils 40 to 60%. Now, there is another method for mixing of soil to get this we have discussed here. The same method we have discussed. For example, that was for the requirement of PI, and this is for the gradation. In this method, you will find that these are the sieve sizes and these are the recommended limits. You have 2 materials, material A and material B. You will see here that material A is not fulfilling the criteria. For 40 mm it is okay, for 20 mm it is okay, but for 10 mm it is not fulfilling the criteria, for 4.75 not filling, for 2.36 and so on. If you see the percent passing of material B, then it is not fulfilling the criteria for 20 mm. For others it is fulfilling, but for this it is not fulfilling. So what you have to do is you have to find out the midpoint of this recommended limits. For example, 80 to 100, the midpoint is 90. 55 to 80, midpoint is 68. 40 to 60, midpoint is 58. After that, you have to find out the numerical difference of A and B with the arithmetic mean of the recommended limit. For example, 90 minus 73, 17. 68 minus 55, 13. 50 minus 42, 8. Similarly, you have to do this with the material A. Material A and B, these are with you now. After that, you have to add these materials. And the material A and B will be in the reverse ratio of this. A is 139, B is 45. The material A and B are 45 is to 139, that is 1.3 is to 1. 1 is to 3.1. Another method is the Rothfuss method. Rothfuss method is the worldwide used method, and people use it for any type of material. For example, the CRRI method was only for 2 materials, while the Rothfuss method can be used for any number of materials which can be used. And Rothfuss was very creative type of person. What he did, he manipulated the x-axis to find out the curve. Normally, what you do, if you remember, try to recall your memory for your class 12th. You were asked to plot a curve between voltage and current. It should come like this. Normally, it was not coming. What you did? First, you draw the curve, and very smartly you put the curve which we are getting. He gave you full marks for that, that you are getting good curve, but actually you are not getting. You manipulated the points. If I am now not wrong, everybody has done like this, and teacher was also knowing this because he also did the same thing when he was in your place. So he did not ask you whether you have really got this curve or not. Similarly, in BTech, you were asked to make a S curve. For the soil classification, you were asked to draw the curve. You first draw the curve, and then smartly you put the lines. So Rothfuss was one step ahead of you. He didn't manage these points. He managed this axis itself. So what he did, these are the steps. Do the sieve analysis of materials to be mixed A, B, and C. So after that, draw a marks percent passing 0 to 100 on vertical scale. 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 19, 100. So you have drawn on vertical axis, you have marked 0 to 100%. Now, without putting the actual values on this, you have to draw the curve. You have not even marked the x-axis, you have drawn the curve. Now, using percent passing of y-axis, required gradation and diagonal draw size on. For example, your requirement says that 40 mm should be 95% passing. So see here 95%. Mark this on the diagonal. Come down and mark this as 40 mm. Secondly, suppose he says 20 mm should be 80% passing. So for 80%, come like this. This is 20 mm, and so on. Without putting the values on the x-axis earlier, you drawn the curve first, and corresponding to curve and percentage passing of the recommended limits, you are now plotting the x-axis. This is the crust of the method. You can see here, this is the curve which we have drawn. These are the values which we have got from there. After that, draw the particle size distribution of curve material A, B, and C. This is material A. So first you join the points. After making this joining of the points, what you have to do is you have to draw a straight line representing this curve on the principle of equal and minimum material on both the sides. For example, I could made this line also. Suppose this is A, this is B. Can you tell me which is a better representation, line A or B? Somebody can unmute his mic or her mic and tell me which line is the better representation of the curve, line A or line B?
Line A, sir.
Why? You are correct. Your answer is correct. But can you answer why A is better? Because
More or
of
less, it
the,
is following the same direction. More or less,
yeah.
same direction.
The correct answer is because the area on both the side of the line should be equal as well as minimum. In case of B, the area on both the side of the line is equal also. In A and B, both the cases, the area on the either side of the line is almost equal, but it is not minimum in case of B. So that is why A is better, right? After that, when you have drawn these lines, suppose one has come A, B, and C. Now you have to join the last point of A with start point of B, and last point of B with the start point of C. And wherever this line is cutting the diagonal, mark that point and see what is the material A. For example, in this case, it is cutting here. So this is the percentage, which is coming out to be 58%. Similarly, if you see this cutting, so this is B, and the remaining part is C. This is the Rothfuss method to find out. This is very important, and this method is used for all type of designs. Whether you are going for WMM, you are going for GSB, you are going for BM, you are going for wherever the homogeneity is there. It is not used, of course, in WBM where there is a layered construction. There, Rothfuss is not useful. But in all other methods like bituminous concrete, bituminous macadam, DBM, everywhere this method is to be used. This is about this one. Another method is the triangular chart method. Triangular chart method is again for 3 materials only, and in that, for every material you have to find out what is the proportion of coarse aggregate, sand, and silt and clay. So coarse aggregate means 3 centimeter to 2 mm, sand means 2 mm to 2.06 mm, 0.6 mm, and clay is less than 0.6 mm on one side each with 0 to 100%. You will see the figure. This is the coarse aggregate. This is the percent sand, and bottom is the clay. Clay and silt. So you can see here that A part is marked here. A is basically is 85% sand, 5% clay, 85% coarse aggregate, 5% clay, and 10% sand. Total should be 100%. The key is to be seen for this. This is A. This will tell you about the percent of coarse aggregate. This will tell about sand. And this will tell about clay and silt. So A is showing here like this. This is your coarse aggregate. This part is showing you the sand, and this part is showing you the clay and silt. Similarly, B is marked. Similarly, C is marked. So A, B, and C are the 3 materials which are available to you. After that, you have to mark the required gradation. Required gradation is D here. Required gradation is D. So that is why what you have to do is join any 2 points with each other and join the third point with D. In this case, what I have done is A and B are joined and the C is joined with D. A, B, and C are there. And D is the required gradation. So what I have done is I have joined A with B C with D. Extend this line to join AB at E. Join A and B. Join C with the desired gradation D. Extend the line CD to join the line AB at E. And then measure these values EB, E, CD, and DE. Based on that, you find out the material. Percent of A is equal to EB DC into 100 upon AB EC, EA into DC upon AB EC, and ED upon EC. So this is the method. Now, many times this question is asked. In every method, we are saying the desired gradation. From where this desired gradation is coming. For that, Fuller's method is there. It says P is the desired gradation is equal to 100 into D by D to the power N, where P is the percent finer than dia D in the mix. Capital D is the diameter of largest particle mm. M is the gradation index. Let us take one example that we have a material in which the maximum size is 40. Maximum size is 40. So this becomes our capital D. And so I want to know what is the material passing 20 mm should be there. And N may be taken as 0.5. So P is equal to 100 times 20 upon 40 to the power 0.5. That is 100 into 1 by 2. So this is 100 into 71. That is comes out to be 71%. Similarly, if I do for 10 mm, then 100 into 10 by 40 to the power 0.5, it comes out to be 50%. So this is the method to find out the gradations of all type of mixes prevailing in the country or the world. And Rothfuss method is also based on the desired gradation. So desired gradation is taken from the Fuller's method. This question may be there in your minds, in your books, codes, etc. Everybody write that this is the desired gradation. Then anybody can ask who gives you the desired gradation. So desired gradation comes from here. Now stabilization using soft aggregates. Many times you will find that there are materials which are very soft, which cannot be used as such. But since these are available and you want to use them, so for that you have to understand what may be the scenario of using the aggregates. For example, this is the condition when coarse compacted aggregates with no fines are there, compacted aggregates with fines just filling the voids, and third is the aggregate with excess fines in which the aggregates are floating in the soil. So depending upon our condition, normally for rural roads or for the conditions where load is less, you can go for this, but you can avoid the direct loading on the aggregate by putting them in the soil, excessive soils. With no fines, then it is highly permeable. When fines just filling the voids, it is less permeable. When excessive fines are there, it is poorly permeable. Permeability is there when you have the sand or the coarse aggregate. When there is clay, the permeability is less. Permeability is less and the drainage is also less. But when there are no fines, the cohesion is very less. It is difficult to put the material when it is not confined, because the material will come out from the sides. For example, if you just take one practical example, if you put the aggregate in the shoulders, like sand, if you put the sand in the shoulders, what will happen? Since there is no confinement, there is no cohesion, So the sand of the shoulders will come out. It will go towards the poropods. Your shoulders will be disturbed. But when there is a clay in the shoulder, it will remain there. But at the same time, when clay is also too much, then swelling will be there, the strength will be less. So you have to see the combination of different things so that your material is passing through that. Now, depending upon these three material conditions, we are interested in knowing this because these two conditions are already there. You know how to make the road. But when excessive fines are there, this is a method which is different from others. For that, Mehra's method of construction using soft aggregate is there. S.R. Mehra was the first Indian director of CRRI. He was the professor at IIT Roorkee, which was at that time University of Roorkee, or maybe it was College of Engineering Roorkee. And S.R. Mehra was the first Indian director. Of course, I am saying Indian director because first director of CRRI was Mr. Zivkis. He was Britisher. But then in 1950, when Indian director was there, he was Mr. S.R. Mehra. So in this, what they say, you have to use, in the base course, you have to use the soil of this having 50% soil of PI 5 to 7. Because this 5 to 7 means it is having clayiness also. Over that, you have to put the bearing course of brick and soil ratio 1:2, and its PI should be 8 to 10. So first the layer of base course is soil, then brick plus soil. Soil is collected from approved borrow pits and stacked on roadside. Water is added up to OMC and soil is mixed and spread to desired camber and rolled by 8-ton power roller. And in this, the thickness, loose thickness is 11.5 centimeter, which is rolled and compacted to the thickness of 7.5 centimeter for the base course. Similarly, for the surface course also it is there that you have the 11.5 centimeter loose thickness and it is rolled by 8-ton power roller to a compacted thickness of 7.5 centimeter. After rolling, the surface is watered and left overnight. The surface is again rolled and finished. So road is closed to traffic 4 to 5 days and it can carry 50 tons per day of mixed traffic. Now, if you find that by the mechanical stabilization you are not able to yes, hello, if you are not able to achieve the desired results by mechanical stabilization, then you go for chemical stabilization. Chemical stabilization means adding some chemical. When mechanical stabilization is not sufficient, you go for chemical stabilization, and in this the first is the lime stabilization. It is adopted for silty clays and clay soils when PI is more than 10. But you please maintain that the calcium hydroxide content in the clay in the lime should be 70% or more. If it is inferior, then you have to increase the quantity of lime. Here are the lump sum requirements of the lime. Alluvial soils and moorams, it is 2 to 3%. For clays and BC soils, it is 3 to 5. For expensive BC soil, it is 5 to 6%. But if you want to know the actual requirement of the lime, then you have to go for this. This is showing the moisture content on one side, and here it is showing the percentage of lime. This is showing from the side, it is showing, and you can see the liquid limit is going like it is coming down, plastic limit is going up. So basically the PI is the difference of these two. Since the difference is going down, it is decreasing, so plasticity index is coming down. Similarly, strength is going like this. So strength is maximum here, but at that point when the maximum strength is there, the requirement of lime is very high. It is around more than 7%, which is not needed, and it will be very costly also. So lime fixation point is here, where it has some PI also. Otherwise, at this point, PI becomes 0. 0 PI is not required. 0 PI means sand, and which is not needed for the road construction. Normally, we go for 4 to 6 PI. So that is why you see here that this is a lime fixation point where we put, and it is around 4% lime is sufficient for all type of soils. If you are not able to achieve the results by simply putting the lime, you can go for the lime fly ash soil stabilization. Fly ash is a pozzolanic material, and in this 6 to 12% fly ash can be used, and it increases the reactivity of the lime. Then you have the cement stabilization. If you are not able to get the result from the lime fly ash also, then you can go for the cement stabilization. Cement is 3 to 4 times more costly than the lime. But when higher and faster development of strength is needed, then you go for this, and especially in high waterlogged areas, of high rainfall areas, you can go for this. If you want to use lump sum values, then these are given here. Otherwise, you can go for the method. There are two methods. One is the British design method for cement soil stabilization. You have to make the samples of like this, 10 centimeter height and 5 centimeter dia. Different cement contents are taken, and then you have to find out the compressive strength, and the value corresponding to 17.5 kg per centimeter square is basically the required value. You can see here. These are the different points showing different cement content and different compressive strength. When it comes to be 17.5 kg per centimeter square or 0.175 kg per mm square, that value gives you the required cement content. In the second method, again, that is the Portland association, Portland cement association method. In this also the same 10 centimeter height, 5 centimeter dia. These are the samples are made with different cement content, and there are 12 cycles of wet, dry, or freeze thaw test cycles. In this, you will, after each cycle, what you do, you put the sample in water, take it out, dry it, and then brush it with the iron brush, and again then put it in water, and that way 12 cycles are made, and you find out what is the loss in weight after 12 cycles. So you have to see the maximum brushing loss percentage by weight is to be found, and in that case the soil type classification is given for A1, A3, A24, A25. It should not be more than 14%, and like that. Next is the soil bitumen stabilization. Soil bitumen stabilization means you have to add the bitumen to the soil, and this is suited for desert area. This is for waterproofing and binding, cutback and emulsions. Factors influencing properties of soil bitumen are soil type. Definitely, it is mainly suited for the desert soil only. And amount of bitumen is also important. If you are adding more bitumen, how these things are changing, you can see one. You can see here, as you are increasing the bitumen content, the stability first increases up to a certain point, but then it starts decreasing. That is why I said that bitumen content is also important. You cannot go on increasing infinitely, because the bitumen is weak in the stability itself, but its role is to provide the waterproofing and the cohesion or the adhesion between the aggregate and the bitumen. So that is why up to a certain point it goes on increasing, then it starts decreasing. Similarly, this maximum dry density also, it goes decreasing, because the density of or the specific gravity of the bitumen is 1 only, 1 or 1.02 or 0.97, while the desert sand has about 1.7 or 1.8 is the the specific gravity of the desert soil. So that is why when you are adding the bitumen, the combined dye density starts coming down. Now some special treatment in waterlogged areas, you have to 3 to 4% lime, sand blanket for capillary cutoff to check moisture movement. Then for that, the thickness of sand blanket in centimeter is given by this 8 by d to the power 0.92, where d is 2d1 d2 upon d1 plus d2. Basically, this is the harmonic mean. Harmonic mean of d1 and d2, and you can find it out. Or third method may be a primary coat comprising of 50% high speed diesel oil and 5% bitumen is applied on both sides of the trench. Then in the waterbound macadam, you see what we do is, these are the requirements. Nowadays, people are discarding waterbound macadam. People say that it is not a good material, though we have the history of using WBM in the base and sub base for more than 100 years. WBM was in use, but nowadays WBM is replaced by GSB for sub base and WMM for base, because people say that these materials are better, and in WBM the contractor puts more soil. So this is, but I can bet with anybody that if you make the WBM as per rule only, then nobody can put more soil there. WBM is there are 3 grades: G1, G2, G3, 4590, 4563, and 22.4253. G1 is used for sub base. This is used for base. This is also used for base. Its thickness is 100 mm. It's 75 mm. It's also 75 mm. So you have to use these material, and its CBR is 100%. It is assumed. So as I said, you have to follow the steps which are given in the codes, in the manuals, in the books. Then there will be no problem. First of all, prepare the foundation of the foundation. If it is a sub-base code, then foundation will be the subgrade. And suppose this is the road. Then preparation of foundation. So the camber is to be provided in the subgrade itself. Please remember that camber is not to be provided on the top layer. It should not start from the top layer. It should start from the bottom layer itself. So first part is preparation of foundation. Then lateral confinement means shoulders are to be made first. Then spreading of coarse aggregate. Then dry rolling and edge to center. Rolling is always to be made from the sides to the center, not from center to the side. If you are making it from center to the side, then camber will vanish. Camber will not be there. So always start rolling from the sides toward the center. Then application of screening, as I said. These are the screening, sprinkling and grouting, water here. Then application of binding material. Now application of binding material. What is binding material? This has been my pet question in UPSC. I made the paper of UPSC for 3 years, and every year I put this question: what is the binding material in WBM? 2 questions from this chapter I included there. One was, what is the binding material in WBM? Who can tell what is the binding material in WBM?
Stone dust, sir. Stone dust.
Any type of material having PI 4 to 6. Stone dust or even soil also, normal soil also. normal soil can also be, or rather stone soil, stone dust is not having PI of this category 4 to 6. So sand, this normal soil is the best thing. So many answers come in this question. Somebody says that it is a binding bitumen, somebody says cement, somebody says something. But the correct answer is soil having PI 4 to 6, which may be, sometimes people answer sand also. Sand cannot be used. Earlier, the specification was saying the PI should be less than 6. At that time, sand was possible to be included. That is why, to make it impossible to include sand, it was made as 4 to 6. If I put the sand there, then what will happen? As I have explained that it cannot be used, it will come out, since there is no cohesion in cement, in sand. And after that, and secondly, this grouting means, when I am saying grouting, it is the flooding. This is my second question at that time. This was my second question, that what is the amount of water to be put in WBM? Most of the students answer this as optimum moisture content, OMC. But in WBM, it is not OMC. It is flooding of water. After that, when you're flooding, the soil will go down and it will occupy the voids of the coarse aggregate. And after that, the extra soil is removed from there by brushing it with the iron wire. The extra soil is removed from there. That is why I say the requirement of soil is 0.05 cubic meter cube per 10 meter square. Nobody can put the soil more than this. If you are putting the soil after the compaction of coarse aggregate and screening. But normally what happens, the engineers are not going to the site, and what the contractor is doing, he puts everything, this coarse aggregate, screening and the soil at a time. So what will happen at some places, there may be a space where there is no aggregate, there is soil only. And because of that, the soil quantity increases, and that spot becomes the weak spot. So if you are going to the field, become a field engineer, please ensure that the WBM construction is a better construction having CBR 100, but it is to be seen that the rules are followed. In case of GSB, it is a homolithic type of construction. It is not like WBM. It is like this. And its CBR, what is the CBR requirement for GSB? Who can tell? CBR requirement for GSB. CBR requirement for GSB is 30%, while for WBM it is 100%. For GSB, CBR requirement is 30%. For WBM, CBR requirement is 100%. So which is a better material? Who can tell? Which is a better material, GSB or WBM? Of course, WBM is a better material because CBR is 100. In case of GSB, for the main loads it is 30%, for rural loads it is even 50%. So this is about that. Now we come to jute textiles and road embankments, and where these are needed. Normally we say that the biodegradation should not be there. In case of jute, it is there. So we use the jute and coir both at such places where the initial requirement is there. After some time in the embankment, grass starts coming, and the reinforcement due to grass is there. So by the time grass is grown, your jute or coir vanishes, and that is why you can use it. We have the geosynthetic family like geogrades, geomembrane, geonets, geocomposite, geotextile, natural and synthetic. And natural geotextiles have jute, coir, paper strips, wood shavings, all are biodegradable. But as I said, that by the time they degrade, the grass comes out, and that is why their strength providing facility is taken over by the grass. And these are naturally occurring materials, so they don't create any problem to the ecology. Then the natural geotextile may be again from animals, from the plants. The function of geotextile are four, that is separation, reinforcement, filtration and drainage. You can see here that with the geotextile, first is the separation part. This side is with geotextile, this side is without geotextile. So if the geotextile is there, separation is there, this material is not mixed with the subgrade. So it is not losing the strength. It acts as the reinforcement, so the effect of the load is less in this case in comparison to this. And filtration and drainage also, you will find that it is filtration and drainage is there in case of the geotextile, while in case of without geotextile it is not there. Vegetable fibers may be different types, like vast fibers from stems like jute, leaf fibers like sisal, henequen, seed fibers like cotton and coir. These are the factors which are affecting the biodegradation, that is fabric density, embedment soil, and temperature and moisture. These are the factors which are affecting biodegradation. I am a little bit in a hurry because I don't have much time now. I've been given the time up to 11:30. So I will try to complete as much as possible. And if you have any doubt, you can ask me later also after the presentation, or even after that, if anybody has any doubt, he can give me one email. I can answer by that also. And lignin content is more, then it is having more strength. Then jute is to be treated with phenol. What is phenol? Phenol is nothing but the phenyl which you use in your houses for cleaning the floor. That is phenyl we use there. And because the degradation of the jute is due to the development of bacteria. To remove the bacteria, we treat it with phenol. But at the same time, if excess amount of phenol is there, then due to the chemical reaction of phenol also jute may degrade. So we have to make the balance between the minimum and maximum doses of phenol. This comes out to be 5% phenol solution is used for 6 hours, and it gives the optimum solution. And with this, the K value, that is modulus of subgrade reaction, increases by 60%. Using jute in place of synthetic geotextile, an economy of about 65% can be achieved. Then coir, as I said, is available in all the coastal regions, and it can be taken out from the white coconut as well as from the green coconut. White coconut means when the green coconut is there, so you have to take it out, retting and beating, you make the white coir, while brown coir is the weathered coconut is used for this purpose, and then we do the coir for the mechanical separation. Chemical composition of coir is, it is having 54% cellulose, 46% lignin. It should be soaked for 4 hours in 5% phenol solution, and 50% saving of coir is there if it is used in place of synthetic geotextile. Now, a little bit about bitumen. Bitumen is having mainly two components, maltines and asphaltenes. Maltines are non-polar and asphaltenes are polar. And bitumen is used in the construction of roads in the top layer because we want a material which should behave in a different manner at different temperatures. When we want to mix it with the aggregate, then at that time it should behave as a liquid so that it can coat the aggregate. When we compact it, we want it to be act as the semi-solid so that compaction can be there. But when the road has been constructed, we want it to behave as the solid so that the vehicles are moving over it and it should have the same strength as the aggregate. For that purpose, bitumen is the ideal material for the road construction. Earlier it was the tar which was coming, but nowadays tar is not coming. Earlier the tar was coming from the coal. Now since the use of coal is limited, so coal tar is also not coming. Now we are having the bitumen. But at the same time, drawback has the uh, drawbacks also are there for the bitumen. First is the oxidation effect. That is, just like human being, aging also takes place for the bitumen, which starts from the time when it is mixed with the aggregate, short-term aging, then long-term aging. Sometimes it has affinity towards the water, so it leaves the aggregate and goes towards the water. Cost is high, around 50 rupees per kg is the cost of water. And the temperature effect, as I said, that it is in use because of the temperature, that its temperature is good, and its variation in its properties is good at different temperatures. But when this temperature variation effect is too much, then it becomes the negative part. For example, in the summer season, if the temperature is high, it becomes soft and the bleeding of the bitumen starts. Similarly, during the winter season, when the temperature is very low, then it becomes very stiff and the cracking starts. So you can see here. So mainly we see that there are two things. One is the fatigue. This is the fatigue case. This is at the low temperature because of the movement of the vehicles. This is there. It is also known as the crocodile cracking or map cracking or alligator cracking. And this is basically the rutting of the pavement. Rutting is taking place. Along the wheel path, the pavement is going down. These are different type of waste which are available, which are there in the country, and these are creating the environmental hazard. It is our plastic and it is our problem, so we have to use this material also. And one plastic bitumen road was made using this material. You can see here. And fatigue, and mainly the road is put on the anvil based on these two things, that the excessive fatigue should not be there, excessive rutting should not be there. When it is fatigue cracking means tensile strain is more, 20% cracked surface area is there, and asphaltenes are more than maltines, then it takes place. It is the brittleness of the binder. But when maltines are more than asphaltene, then rutting can take place, and along the wheel path it may take place. So this was the conventional research work which was done by different people. This work I am showing you by Ravind Singh. He did this work here as an MTech student. He used these two type of plastic materials. You can see here. This is the cement carry bag. This is a normal carry bag. He mixed these materials in the bitumen, and different type of results were achieved. These are the conventional tests which we did: phase separation, penetration test, softening point, ductility, flash and fire, specific gravity, penetration index, etc. And these are the rheological tests. Rheological tests are the new things in the country now. Though worldwide people are not using penetration tests or softening tests, etc. nowadays, which are the indirect measuring of the viscosity, because what we measure in penetration test, it is the penetration in 1/10 of mm, which is not the viscosity which should be poised. Similarly, in case of softening point, we measure the temperature at which the balls touch the lower plate. So that is also not the viscosity. That is in degree centigrade. Thirdly, in other tests, what we do is we find out the length at which the thread breaks. So that is in centimeter, not in poise. So nowadays we have this rheometer. This can be used for this purpose, and it has two plates, and a drop of bitumen is placed between them, and the effect of various actions on these drops are taken. So this is frequency sweep test, amplitude sweep test, PG grading. Nowadays PG grading is coming out like if I say PG 64 minus 22. This means your bitumen can work up to 64 degrees centigrade on the higher side and minus 22 degrees centigrade on the lower side. In our country, we are still using VG, that is viscosity grade bitumen. VG 30 means viscosity related to that, while earlier we were having the penetration grade. So now we are switching over to PG grading also worldwide. These are the different tests which are shown here. We did the plate load test also, and this is the plate load test, different test, and we tried to find out the phase separation test also, in which that we put the material in a test tube and then we cut it into 3 parts and find out the softening point of the top layer and the bottom part. Their difference should not be more than 3 degrees centigrade, and if it is more than 3 degrees centigrade, then this is not useful. So here you can see that it is coming up more than 3 degrees centigrade, less than for 4 degree only. So this is useful. Similarly, here also, cement carry bag also. Otherwise, the phase separation is there, so it cannot be used. You see here. Then these are the properties of modified bitumen. And performance grading test using the rheometer, G star upon sine delta should be less than 1, then it is passing the test. If it is less than, then it should be more than 1. So up to this point, it is passing. So your PG grading will be G70. For VG plus 4% CCP, this has become 82. So what is the meaning of this? That by adding 4% cement bag or the carry bag, by adding 4% carry bag, the PG grading has changed from 70 to 82. That is, it can work now up to 82 degrees centigrade. Similarly, for cement carry bag, it is increasing up to 100. So up to 100 degrees centigrade, it is useful. So this is telling you about the different materials, how we are. Then MSCR test, it is also a test on regarding the rutting. It also tells you the improvement when we are using 4% cement bag or cement carry bag. This is the LAS test, that is a linear amplitude sweep test, which is telling about the fatigue. This is 4-point bending beam test result. This is also about the fatigue. And wheel rut tester is the condition when we simulate the conditions of the rutting in the lab, and it is the wheel which passes to and fro over the sample, and after 1000 passes, after 2000 passes, after 1 lakh passes, we try to find out what is the rut depth, and it should be less than 25 mm of the sample. So this is all about your so this is about what I wanted to show you. I have tried to minimize the time because I have not included much about bitumen. I have seen my students are giving lectures on bitumen more. So I try to concentrate more on non-bituminous part in my lecture. So Nikhil and Maninder and Bhupen, they all will be covering more on the bituminous part. So that will be useful to you. Whatever I have covered, you can, if you have any question, you can ask.
Sir, there are a couple of questions in the chat box. If you allow, can I read them one by one?
Yeah, sure.
So the first question is by Sir Mr. Kshitij. He's asking that what could be the long-term effect of chemical stabilization in soil?
Long-term effect, actually, that is why we have not gone beyond 4%. If you are going more than 4%, then the permeability will be reduced. By using any type of chemical stabilization, you are reducing the permeability, you are reducing the drainage. So that is why we don't go more than 4%. Suppose you go for 8% or 10% of cement, then the strength will be definitely more. But in that case, the pores will be choked up and your soil may become poor.
Right, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Is there any difference in the lifespan of flexible pavement if we mix waste like plastic or others as compared to conventional mixes?
Because plastic can be used two ways. One is as the geotextile in the soil. So there is no effect because these are the inert materials. In case of the top layer, the strength is also increased as well as we are reducing the rutting and fatigue. So that is why the life will increase. If you see the Hamburg wheel tester, that by adding these waste plastics or PMB or any other modifiers, what you are seeing is that for reaching 25 mm of the rutting, the number of cycles which are coming over that are more. So the number of cycles means the age of the pavement, it is increasing. So definitely the age is increased by adding the modifiers.
Okay. So the next question is by Mr. Chetan Kumar, and he's asking, can you throw some light on biobitumen?
Biobitumen, we have not worked at Roorkee for that purpose. I don't know in other IITs people are working over that. We are not working over biobitumen.
So this is for the participants. The chat box questions are over. If there is anything, you can raise your hand. We have forced muted you. The host will unmute you if you raise your hand. If there are any questions. Sir, so I think there are no further questions. So in that case, going with the time, I think now my heartfelt thanks to you, sir. Despite of your busy schedule, you have find time to grace this FTP by sharing your valuable knowledge with all the participants across India. So once again, thank you. And we will wait for your other similar talks, lectures in near future at IIT Jammu. Your constant support to the new budding IIT will always be required, sir. So thank you for your time, sir.